What's going on, y'all? It's your boy Mike Ryder, Mr. Accountability, the man behind the microphone. You are tuned in to a special edition of Mike Ryder Talks. I got a special guest in the house with me tonight with a very, very special message that I need y'all to hear. I'm live, just like I am every Tuesday at 7 p.m. on Facebook and YouTube. If this is your first time watching it, make sure to subscribe to the channel. Make sure to like the page wherever you're watching it at. And you know what? Without further ado, I'm about to get into my guest. Tonight, I'm joined by a man who has gone through some hardships in life. A man who was wrongfully convicted of murder and rape at the tender age of 17 years old. A man who was released 16 years later because of DNA evidence. He went on to graduate. Very emotional night right there. He went on to graduate to become a lawyer, and he now fights for those who have been wrongfully convicted. I'm speaking about none other than my man Jeffrey Deskovic. How you doing tonight, my man? Unmute your mic. Let's get to it.
I'm great, Mike. I'm really pumped up about this interview tonight.
Hey, I'm so happy to have you on. I'm ready to talk with you. We got some things that we need to uncover. However, I want to start at the beginning. What happened, Jeff?
So I was arrested for murder and rape, which I didn't commit. So the year is 1990. It's in Peekskill. It's in Westchester County, New York. It's suburban. It's middle class. It's ethnically diverse. Really, very few murders that had happened there. And a classmate who was in two of my classes, a freshman, one is a sophomore. She went missing, and a couple of days later, her body was found naked from the waist down, and it really sent the city into like an atmosphere of fear, rumor, paranoia. Parents were bringing their kids right to school and directly home. There were town hall meetings, safety tips, progress on investigation. And the police interviewed a lot of students from the high school, and some of them told the police that they might want to speak with me because I didn't quite fit in. And then an additional thing is that was really my first brush with death. And so I was a sensitive teenager. And so the police thought it was suspicious that I would be emotional about the murder of somebody that I barely knew. So they took that as a sign of guilt. And then they also got a psychological profile from the NYPD, which purported to have the psychological characteristics of the actual perpetrator. And I had the misfortune of matching that. So that was how I got on the police radar.
So they take you in because you showed signs of what they were looking for from the profile.
Yes.
Okay, so once you get into custody, they do the full rundown. What evidence did they have against you?
Well, they didn't have any initially. And so for about 6 weeks, the police would meet with me 2 or 3 times a week. And my interactions with them always had the dynamic that half the time they would talk to me as if I was a suspect, and the other half the time they would pretend like they needed my help to solve the crime. So they would say things like, kids won't talk freely around us, but they will around you. Let us know if you hear anything. They asked me opinion questions, congratulate me that my opinion was correct. Before I was a teenager, I used to think about being a cop when I grew up. So that played into that whole false narrative. And then they did the good cop, bad cop routine. And I began to look up to the officer who was pretending to be my friend as a father figure. And eventually they got me to agree to take a polygraph. They told me that some new information had come into the police file and they wanted to share that with me. And that would allow me to be more helpful to them. But first, though, I had to take and pass a polygraph. So the next day, instead of going to the school, I went to the police station. My mother and grandmother thought I was in school, so they didn't call around for me. I had no attorney present. They didn't give me anything to eat. They gave me a brochure explaining how the polygraph worked, but then I didn't understand what it really meant. I had a lot of big words, but I figured, well, I'm there to help the police, so what does it matter? Let's just get on with it. Then they put me in a small room, and again, they haven't given me anything to eat the whole time I'm there. There is no attorney,
Right.
and then he gives me countless cups of coffee to get me nervous, and then he launches into his third degree tactics. So he raised his voice at me. He invaded my personal space. He kept asking me the same questions over and over again, and he kept that
But
up
hold
for
on, hold
six.
on, Jeff. Let me
Yeah.
cut you off right there.
Hmm.
At this time, you're 17 years old,
Yeah, I'm 16.
16 at this time.
Hmm.
They're feeding you coffee, getting your nerves up. They're trying to get you nervous,
Yes,
trying to get you to admit something that you didn't do. They're scaring you in the corner pretty much, correct?
correct.
Mm. Keep on, man. I didn't mean to
No, whenever you want to break in
interrupt
and
you.
clarify something or ask further questions, that do that by all means. Don't hesitate. So
Got you.
yeah, so from there, so he kept that up for 6.5 to 7 hours.
Okay.
You know, and then towards the end, and each hour that goes by, my fear is increasing in proportion to the time. And then finally, the cop who he leaves the room, and the cop who had been pretending to be my friend, he came in the room and he asked me. He came in the room and told me rather. He said the other officers are going to harm you. I've been holding them off. I can't do this any longer. You have to help yourself. Look, just tell them what they want to hear. You go home afterwards. You're not going to be arrested. Being young, naive, frightened, just 16, I wasn't thinking about the long term. I was only concerned with my safety in the moment. I was in fear of my life. The fact that I didn't know where I was and that no one else knew where I was either loomed very large in my mind. I was overwhelmed emotionally and psychologically. And then he's conveyed this threat. He's given me this false promise. So I made a decision to just make up a story based on the information that they gave me in the course of the interrogation that day and in the 6 weeks run up to it. By the time everything was said and done, I collapsed on the floor into a fetal position, crying uncontrollably. Obviously, I was arrested. I was charged with a murder and rape.
So they hit you with the good cop, bad cop situation.
Yes,
They wanted to scare you into a corner, which it worked because, like you said, you ended up falling out on the floor crying. You don't know what your future holds. You're not even thinking about the future. You're just trying to ensure your safety right now.
right. Yes,
And
you got it.
you were put in a situation like a lot of people. I have a best friend. His name is Mike as well. He's in jail right now, serving 25 years. And I'm pretty sure they pulled that same type of deal on him. He was around that same age. We were teenagers. I'm not going to go into details about his story, but like him, like you, and many other people, like what the Central Park
Right.
Five, I think they what they were
That's
called.
right. Yes.
They scare you into an admission of guilt, an admission of something that you didn't do, or you might have partially done something wrong, but not the crime that they think that you're doing or that they're accusing you of doing, and it's wrong. So okay, they scare you into an admission of guilt. You serve 16 years in prison.
Yes.
What happened to get you out of jail, to get you out of prison?
Sure. I would like to explain a little bit about the trial and how I was wrongfully convicted, and then get to the exoneration. Is that okay?
Let's go. Let's go. That's fine.
Cool.
The
All
floor
right.
is yours.
All right. So the DNA didn't match me before the trial. They showed the semen on the victim didn't match, and then the prosecutor got the medical examiner to commit perjury and commit fraud. He claimed that he remembered that he forgot to document medical evidence that he said showed the victim was promiscuous, and then that allowed the prosecutor to argue, oh, it doesn't matter, the DNA doesn't match you, that doesn't mean that he's innocent, that there was yet another person that she must have slept with before you murdered and raped her, which doesn't make any sense because that would mean there would be seminal fluid for two people if that was the case. And then in addition to that, he took it a step further and mentioned another person by name that he claimed that slept with the victim, but he never called this other student as a witness. He never asked him for a DNA test. He just made the unsupported argument to the jury. And at the same time, my public defender essentially didn't defend me. He didn't call my alibi as a witness. He rarely met with me. When I tried to explain I was innocent, what happened in the interrogation room, he was always shutting me up. One time he told me he didn't care if I was guilty or innocent. He never cross-examined this medical examiner. He never made use of the DNA evidence. And in terms of the confession, it was not videotaped. It was no audio tape. It was no signed confession. It was just the cop's word for it. And when they came to court,
Come
they left the threat and false promise out of their story. So when you defend the case with as a confession, you got to answer that confession. You got to explain it. You have to disprove it. In many ways you can. You bring it all together in your closing argument. But he didn't do that. He wouldn't allow me to testify. Uh, and then also, in addition to that, sometimes he argued to the jury the confession never happened. At other times, he argued, oh, the confession happened, but it was coerced. And at still other times, he was arguing that it happened, but it was false. So basically, he destroyed his own credibility as an attorney. You can't be all over the place making all these different, just throwing stuff
on.
against the wall. Then people are going to think you're going to say whatever you need to say. So
But the judge went along with that, correct? Even though he was
yes, he did.
all over the place,
The
the
judge went
judge
along
allowed
with it.
that.
Yes, he did. And the judge did things on his end of it also, which led this thing to go south. So so polygraph results are not allowable in the courtroom unless both sides agree because it's not reliable. But even though that's the rule, he allowed the polygraphers to keep telling the jury that I failed the polygraph. And and then the victim's clothes was entered into evidence, including the bra, which matched to the one of the statements. I said I ripped her bra off. So the jury asked to see the bra, which was important because there's some bras, the way that they're made, you can't pull that off of a body. So that's when the judge said, well, the evidence, including this bra, have been left in the courtroom over the weekend, and the janitors thought it was garbage. So they threw it out. So it's not available anymore. And lastly, the jury sent out a note asking the judge, if we can't come up with a verdict, that we're going to have to be sequestered over the Christmas holiday, meaning kept in a hotel. You
What?
can't watch the TV, the news, limited. And the judge said yes. And so I learned many years later that at that point it was 11-1. There was one holdout juror who didn't think I was guilty, and he said they were all pressuring him, and that at the end, when that note came back, none of them wanted to be stuck over the Christmas holiday, including him. And that was why he switched his vote. They just wanted to get out of there, so that he switched his vote to guilty, even though he didn't think I was guilty. And so the end result of all of that together was that I was wrongfully convicted, and I was given a 15 to life sentence, even though the judge said to me, maybe you are innocent. He still sentenced me instead of overturning the conviction, and I was sent to a maximum security prison.
Come on, man. And this is the judicial system that we think is doing our people some justice. This is the same system that didn't do right by the Central Park Five. They didn't do right by my man Jeff right here. They didn't do right by my friend Mike, because just like you, if I'm not mistaken, he had a public defender. And like you mentioned, those public defenders don't defend you. A lot of
Right.
times they tell you to plead guilty for a lesser charge. But let's say you were facing two heavy penalties, rape and murder. Let's say you're facing those two. If he tells you to plead guilty, what are you going to plead guilty to?
Yeah, so typically the way that would run, he would tell you, well, look, if you lose a trial, you could get 25 to life. I don't think I could win this case, but there's a deal on the table right now. You could plead guilty to manslaughter and get 5 to 15 instead of 25 to life. And most people take the deals, and about 98% of the cases resolved by plea bargains rather than trials. And there was a judge who estimated that he thought that the percentage of innocent people that were pleading guilty to crimes was at 10%.
Okay, so let me fast forward a little bit. You
Yeah.
spent 16 years in prison.
Hmm.
You get exonerated by DNA evidence. How did that come about?
So I got the Innocence Project agreed to take my case. The district attorney who had blocked further DNA testing left office, and her successor allowed me to have the testing. And thirdly, we got lucky that the actual perpetrator's DNA was in the data bank. So that had been created in 97, 98. So we went from being able to say that it wasn't me, but who it actually was. The DNA matched him because he had killed a second victim 3.5 years later after killing the victim in my case. So my conviction was overturned based on the DNA match and his confession, and ultimately all the charges against me were dismissed on actual innocence grounds, and he was arrested and convicted of the crime.
Now, 16 years of your life is gone.
Yes,
You got sentenced at 17, released 16 years later. That's what, 33? 33
30,
years old?
close 32.
Okay, so when you get out of prison, what did they do to pay you back? What did they owe you?
Well, they released me without anything, and I had to file a lawsuit, and it took 5 years before I received any financial compensation. So it was 5 difficult years. I was always passed over for gainful employment because all the employers wanted somebody that could hit the ground running, that had job experience. Technology was different. GPS, cell phones, internet hadn't been created. Culture was different. Cities and towns didn't look the same. The people that used to live in places that I knew were gone. So it felt like I was in a parallel universe. I went to mental health professionals 4 times a week for 6 years and dealing with the after effects. I experienced the stigma. You were in prison 16 years wrongfully, yes, but you were there for 16 years. So how much of that rubbed off on you? Is it safe to be alone someplace with you? So it's been difficult in terms of personal relationships. And it was awkward meeting up with my immediate and extended family because, the majority of them had never come to see me. So I knew who they were from memories when I was younger, but, I was a different person now, and so were they. That having been said, I did become an advocate, and I started doing presentations across the country and some internationally. I became a weekly columnist. I was doing a lot of media to trade the privacy in exchange for awareness of issues, and I was meeting with elected officials. I got scholarship for Mercy College to finish the bachelor's because I was 10 classes short at the time that they cut the college education from prisoners. So I got the scholarship for Mercy College. I got the bachelor's, and I would go on to get a master's degree from John Jay College. My thesis was on wrongful conviction, cause, and reform. And after 5 years, I got some financial compensation. So, I took $1.5 million of the dollars that I had got, and then I started the Jeffrey Deskovic Foundation for Justice, and we've been able to continue the policy work I did as an individual, but we've been able to free 11 wrongfully convicted people. You see on the screen
Wow.
now with the red tie, with the glasses, that was William Hawley, who did 8 years and 4 months in an arson case that was actually an electrical fire. Helped pass 3 laws: videotaping interrogations, identification reform, expansion of DNA database. And I joined the coalition. The foundation joined a coalition called "It Could Happen to You," which I'm an advisory board member of, and we've been able to pass 5 additional laws there. And we're now doing policy work in New York, Pennsylvania, and California. And at some point, I became not content to sit in the courtroom in the front row. I wanted to sit at the defense table. And there's a picture here now up. I'm speaking. That's first case I entered into as co-counsel. We're there for Andre Brown, asking he be given this day in court to have his evidence of innocence considered. So I became an attorney, and pursued the dream of exonerating others as a lawyer.
Okay. So you get out of jail, you get out of prison, you wait 5 years or have to wait 5 years before they can give you any type of payback. You got to get reaccustomed to life. Now, current time, you are defending people who were wrongfully convicted.
Yes,
You are out in New York, though, correct?
I am. Yes, that's true.
But just statistically, and I'm pretty sure you know the numbers, nationwide, how many people are wrongfully convicted a year or just period?
Sure. So, in terms of per year, so the estimation is that 10,000 people are wrongfully convicted each year there's a Wayne State study. So that's that estimation. I mean, it's an estimation because you can only count people that are exonerated, not people wrongfully convicted. But nationally, since 1989, 2,805 people from 1989 forward have been exonerated. So this is a really it's a much bigger problem than what most
Yes.
people realize. And remember, those numbers, those are the people that made it out. That's not the people that's still in. I mean, 19 people I did time with were exonerated either before me or after me. So I personally believe the percentage is between 15 to 20% of the prison population.
Right. Because a lot of times we get people in there, they're like placeholders. They're just trying to get people in there to fill spots. We're not trying to do any hard work to, pull up evidence, go to trial. Hey, you're our suspect. You did it. We're going to scare you into a confession.
Yeah,
And I
or
want to
guilty
ask you
plea.
something.
Yeah. Or
Yeah, guilty plea. I have someone in the audience. This question right here, they ask, what would you tell a younger teenager or a young teenager about how to handle that situation?
yeah, I would say to them that you're supposed to just give your name and where you live, and then you ask for a lawyer, and you're not supposed to say anything else. So that lawyer will prevent the police from coercing you and doing to them what they did to me. But the thing is that most people who are innocent, their innocence works against them, and they think, well, I'm innocent. What do I need a lawyer for? This is going to make me look bad or look guilty. But those are all incorrect lines of reasoning. You need to ask for a lawyer. Same thing as an adult. And last thing I'll mention here, Mike, is the percentage of wrongfully convicted prisoners whose wrongful conviction caused by coerced false confession is at 25%. And while adults have given false confessions, particularly vulnerable populations are youth and people with mental health issues. And sometimes the cops even manage to co-opt parents into their tools of coercion. Well, come on, Johnny. Just tell them what happened. We can get out of here. I mean, they got something on you. Why are we here? And by the time you get out of there with your child, the false confession is mentioned, and he ain't coming home for a really, really long time.
That's sad, sad and foul. You mentioned it in your story, and it's the same thing that goes for my friend Michael I told you about. He's still in right now. He won't get out until he's about 43 if he serves his time. Once he
Mm.
gets out, locked up at 17, gets out at 43, never had a car, never had a job, never had any children, never had a place of his own. I'm pretty sure you were in that same situation.
I really was, yes, exactly, and that made transitioning even more difficult. Just the amount of choices available in the world could be overwhelming. Sometime when I went shopping, there were so many products and so many variations and Look, I can't finish this. I'm just come back another time. It's too much. What are you going to order to eat? Same thing as him. And one time the dean of the college even what took me shopping to try to teach me how to shop. What cleaning products I would need to clean the apartment I was living, and I saved the empty containers and brought it back with me to the supermarket so that I could know what to purchase next time. So that's how deep that this thing ran. It was really, really hard for all the reasons you correctly point out.
I've been doing a lot of soul searching lately. I've been looking a lot into purpose. Do
Mm.
you think what happened to you was a way to get you to go into your right path?
1,000%, without a doubt. Without a doubt, this is my mission in the world. This is why I went through what I went through. And look, I have a sense of resignation, of acceptance, of inner peace as a result of that. So I feel healing. I feel I feel like it's cathartic. It makes a difference, and I need to make my suffering count for something, and I've done that, and kind of tied into that. I'm asked a lot of times, am I angry? And no, I want to enjoy my life as much as I can, and I can't do that if I'm angry. And if I was angry, I would really be the only loser in that scenario because I already lost so much as it was. What am I going to give them the rest of my life? It's not like I'd be harming them if I was angry. And I take that energy and I channel it into the advocacy work that I do. And so I have it's comfort to know my place in the world and to know, I make a difference.
I'm glad that you know that you're making a difference. I'm glad that you know that you don't have to be angry, because if you hold in that anger, that resentment, it now controls you because it lives in your mind. Now I look at
Right.
some of your other pictures. I see a man at peace. I
Yes.
see a man out having a good time. You have to excuse that one right there, but
No,
I
that's
see
wonderful. That's
you.
a great human interest moment. Yes.
I see you enjoying yourself. You doing what you want to do. You out with nature. You working for the people. Like I said, you're out here speaking. You have a foundation. You're shaking hands. You're making moves. You are trying to get laws passed, which you have helped get some passed, correct?
I have. Yes, I have. Most recently, so Governor Cuomo recently signed into law about like 4 or 5 days ago, the country's first independent oversight commission for prosecutors now. So now there's an independent body that can investigate allegations of prosecutorial misconduct, the first of its kind in the country. So yes, I have helped pass 8 laws.
And
Most of
this
them in New
this
York, but
recent
one in Pennsylvania. Go ahead. Mhm.
oh, you pretty much answered that. I was about to say this last recent one is only in New York, correct?
The most recent one was in New York, but there is another. I helped pass a law, myself and my colleagues. So It Could Happen to You coalition, from our success in New York, we opened chapters in Pennsylvania and California. So called Pennsylvania Could Happen to You, California Can Happen to You. So me, the coalition's founder, and one other person, we're in common to all three of the chapters, and everything else is people just state specific. So we did help pass a law in Pennsylvania, automatic expungement. So previously what was happening is people were exonerated in court, but their records weren't cleared, and so that was hurting the exonerees when they would go for job interviews. So we helped to pass that. Our current goal now in Pennsylvania is one of 14 states that does not have any compensation, so the state doesn't pay the guys anything when they're exonerated. So we're working on that, and we're building support for that, and also for the oversight for prosecutors. Now in California, we're trying to get the oversight for prosecutors, and we're trying to kill the death penalty, Mike, because the a risk of executing somebody innocent, amongst many other legit objections. But so that those are our policy goals, and done some work in New York too towards parole reform also. So lots of stuff to change, and I'm just getting warmed up, Mike. I'm just getting warmed up.
I could tell. Listen, I've been communicating with you for like the last week or two online. I've been watching your pages, stalking you. You are a hardworking man. You work hard for what you believe in, and this is a great cause to believe in. I want to touch on something you just said. One of the states doesn't give compensation for people who are exonerated.
Yeah, there's 14 of them. The one I'm working on now is Pennsylvania, because it's a border state to New York. Yeah, they
Right,
don't
right.
give they don't give compensation. No, they don't. We've been working a year, Mike, just to try to build support, just to build some support amongst the legislators, and we're still not all the way there. We're still not all the way there.
Yeah, so you're at the ground level, because once you build
Yes,
support, it has to be written, it has to be passed or attempted to be passed.
right,
It's so
exactly.
many things, and so many things that you're saying, that I'm seeing, that you're seeing is wrong with our system. How do you?
Yes.
Okay, I'm gonna be honest with you. I've been networking with a lot of people lately, and I've been telling them I honestly feel like the way to fix the system is to tear it down and just start over. Just
Okay.
honest speaking.
Well, I think it would be a lot more work to do that, as opposed to just identifying where do the faults lie in the system, and then seek to change those things. While I do have met with some in law enforcement, like I've spoken in front of groups of prosecutors, and twice a year I've spoken at police academy with the cadets. So while it's great to encourage the voluntary implementation of best practices, I do believe it's more important to get them passed into law so that it's not optional anymore. But all these deficiencies leading to wrongful conviction and the other justice reform issues, we need to make fixes in these things and in the law. We need it across the country, and we need it in the federal justice system too. There is no state that's doing it better than the rest. Oh, this could never happen here. Yes, it can, and it does.
And it
And
probably does. Yep.
it absolutely does. And but I think that positioning justice reform is about accuracy and justice, and not anti-prosecutor or cop, definitely against any cop or any prosecutor that's engaging in anything illegal, running over constitutional rights, state rights, and filing procedure, definitely against them. But if you're honest in that profession, look, force the dirty ones out of your profession. I mean, what's the saying that's given to civilians? If you see something, say something. Isn't that how that goes? So what
Yeah.
happened to that as opposed when it comes to law enforcement? And only when that happens can we have some faith restored, the public into law enforcement. But right now, too many things are broken, and it's not a few bad apples. It ain't everybody, but it's also not a few bad apples. If it was, we wouldn't have close to 3,000 exonerations. We wouldn't have the unjustifiable deadly police force. We wouldn't have the police brutality. So no, it's not a few bad apples.
No, it's more than a few. And I want to go to the audience. My man Zay, he asked, what was the first thing you wanted to do or wanted when you were freed?
I wanted to have a good meal, and they had Innocence Project had prearranged that. So I went to an Italian food restaurant, and I had mussels with Fra Diavolo sauce, and I hadn't had that in 16 years. And that the first night of my freedom, I did something else I hadn't did in 16 years, Mike. I took a bath. I took a
Really?
bath, man. Yeah,
Well,
there's
yeah,
no
because in prison,
just
it's,
showers.
yeah, just
Just
showers.
showers, and I got to sit outside after it was dark, and I could stay
I just
inside.
took it all in. Took it
Yes.
in.
Yes. Yeah,
It feels
absolutely.
good to breathe that fresh, free air after
Yeah.
16 years of being in prison.
Yes, it does. Yeah.
I got another question from the audience. What do you see for your future?
So I see a book deal, a movie, maybe a one-man show or a musical, just getting my story out in other art mediums. I see my profile getting raised. I mean, I would like it to, be on par with, some of the old civil rights leaders, where I speak, it can get a lot more attention and be even more influential. So I see that. And at some point, if we can stop being so polarized as a country like we are right now, at some
Mhm.
point, maybe I make the transition from working as an advocate in a nonprofit sector. Maybe I make the jump to politics and I run for office. So imagine me as a district attorney, for example. We could have
You
a
would do
real
great.
conviction review unit. We could free people that's innocent in prison. We can divert, not people who are arrested for nonviolent crimes. Incarceration doesn't need to be the punishment for everything. We can, drug usage as a public health problem. Everybody would be, we end over sentencing. Everybody could be presumed to get the minimum unless there's some reason why it shouldn't be. And imagine the district attorney, weighing in on justice reforms. I mean, saying, yeah, we need to get this change. We need to have college education in prison, in the prisons, because it's a much less recidivism rate. And look, we need to have the prison as a rehabilitative place. So enough with all this verbal abuse and everything else. And you guys got to crack down on all this prison violence. So imagine somebody saying that. Imagine worthy parole candidates, people who could demonstrate their rehabilitation as proven by their disciplinary record, as proven by completing college and therapeutic programs and vocational trades. Imagine them going to the parole board with a letter on the DA letters letterhead. Yeah, we've reviewed their record and we feel they can safely be returned to the community. Parole him. Parole him. Imagine people go. Imagine those type of things. Imagine the national dialogue that could take place, even in the fact of just running, the amount how far the issue could go. Much less if I won and try to persuade other people to have real conviction review units and be for justice reform. I mean, I could see doing that. And Mike, I'm going to dream out loud. Okay, if I could win that. Okay, if I could win that, and maybe it never gets off the ground, but just dream with me for a minute. What if if I could win that, I would run for governor after that. Why would I not? And just be a person for the people. And if you could win that, you got to go for the grand prize, right? If you're the governor of New
President.
York, you got to go for that. Yeah. So look, there's a potential path in that aspect of it. Lots of ifs and maybes. Can this break right and that break right? But I could see, I could see doing all of those things conceivably. But the main thing, is enough with the polarization. I mean, I vote candidate, I vote plank. I'm not loyal to either party. Whoever's for justice reform, I
Mm.
back you. And to have a realistic chance of winning, you have to run on one of the major party labels. And I don't want half the country to hate me because I don't have what the letter that you think I should have in front of my name. So I'm a person for the people, and I don't want that part of it. So I would have to see if things can change, whether I really would do that. But it was clear to me as recent as some years ago. But we'll see. Maybe it still comes about. We'll see.
Well, I'm gonna say this: if I
Yeah.
ever see you run for governor,
Yeah.
I'm in Georgia. I will
Okay.
legally move to New York just to
Okay.
vote for you, my man,
All right.
and try to help because I see you're for the people. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. Like I said, he's out here shaking hands. He's out here with the people. He's working with the people endlessly, like day in and day out. And even just that small 3 minutes of speech you just gave, better than half the stuff that I've heard from a lot of these other politics. And then if we get into it, like you said, we're polarized, we're divided. As a
Yeah.
country, we are very listen, man. This is no offense to anybody. I am not racist, but the last 4 years previous to this, there was a lot of tension in our country. We pressure was about to burst the pipes. You hear me?
Mhm.
Like people were at each other's necks. White people, black people, Indian, whatever you want to call them. Everyone was divided, and it still spilled over to now. We're in a little better place, but it's still there. And we
Right.
need people. Go ahead. Go ahead.
I just want to say it. Ideas are not discussed and debated anymore. Whether something is supported or not has to do with who says it. So if a Republican articulates an issue, the Dems is against it automatically. If a Democrat articulates something, Republicans are against it automatically, but would be for it if someone in their own party does it. It's
Mhm.
terrible. It's and I don't even believe that the majority of the time. Well, I know this. I don't have to say believe because I've had explicit conversations. A lot of times, elected officials they don't even vote their conscience. It is what is the party? What position does the party leadership want me to take? Yeah, it's really crazy to me. It's not. There's a lot of things wrong, but I hope one day we can get it all straightened out. Just the idea that just a couple of people have all the power and not the people who are in the positions that are representing the will of the people who voted for them. To me, it's wrong. To me, it's wrong.
Very wrong. Very wrong. And we need change. I want to point out a few media things. We're going to get out of here shortly. I see you right here in front of this sign. Let me make that bigger. On the wall behind you, it says, "Emancipate yourself from mental slavery. None but ourselves can free our minds." Now, that's a quote from Bob Marley. Now, if I make that a little bigger, I see on your shirt,
Yes,
"I'm
it's
that exoneree who is also a lawyer." You're on your knees right here. To me, that symbolizes a lot. That right there could be art, and it could be depicted in a few ways, but to me, that symbolizes not only a free man who understands the system. I see a man who's not bound by color, not
right.
bound by race, because Bob Marley's a black man, you're a
Hmm.
white man. Two very different situations, two very different people, but y'all both stand for something. Y'all both have a very powerful message. He has a message of peace that he spread a lot through his songs, through the way that he lived his life. Just every way imaginable through him, you saw peace. You saw a man going for peace, trying to spread peace. I see it with you. in your message, your works day in and day out, the shirt you have on there, but not to make light of the situation. Everything you stand for is peace. Your purpose in life right now, spread peace throughout our justice system, so it can reflect on our people. And I appreciate you for that. But I want to ask you this. What was the purpose of you kneeling in front of this? Was it just a photo op?
Absolutely not. No, because I felt humbled in the moment. I'm in the presence of greatness. Just that quote from Bob Marley himself. The saying, we stand on the shoulders of giants, of people who come before us. And I very much see my criminal justice reform work as
Mhm.
part of, civil rights struggle. I identify and feel a kinship with great people who've come before me that have fought for civil rights and for freedom in a variety of, in many different ways, and I feel humbled when I'm in the presence of something that reminds me of that, while I also feel a kinship. I mean, I felt like that when there's a big statue of Dr. King in front of the White Plains courthouse, where I've been there, and I felt so humbled and so in awe. There was signs, like I remember on a rest area in a highway, and there was a sign that said that location had been a stop on the Underground Railroad. So I feel commonality, I feel solidarity, but I also feel humbled also when I'm in places like that. So it's all that vibe I'm trying to convey. I'm probably not, but I'm trying, is what I'm caught up in right there.
No, listen, it spoke volumes to me when I saw this picture. And when I see other pictures of you, like I said, you're paying respect right here.
Hmm.
You right there by the statue, by the to represent for the Vietnam fallen soldiers. I see a lot in you. And me personally, I want to thank you. I have some questions that I want to ask you, and I'm going to end this thing right here because I want to ask you some stuff offline. But before we go, is there anything that you would like to say to the audience to close us out?
Yes. If you like the work that I'm about, if you the work my foundation is about, we have a crowdfunding site on the website called Patreon. So my dream, what if there were 25,000 people who were willing to sacrifice $3 to $5 or whatever you could afford on a recurring basis to help us free more innocent people? Help me to get that message out. And I ask people to contribute. That would give us additional funds so we can hire attorneys, investigators, paralegals, other additional legal personnel, so that we could free even more. We have 10 cases active. There's another 7 that are approved that are just sitting there that we don't have the capacity to move. We could do policy work in more than just New York, Pennsylvania, and California. My ultimate dream, and I'll be able to do this when the public support's there, I would love to have a chapter of my organization in each state and ultimately in each country, because I see wrongful conviction as a worldwide issue. In countries where we don't see and we don't hear about exonerations, it's not because the wrongful convictions aren't happening, it's because no one's working on it. So I wanted to share that. And then there's something a little bit more broader. Lessons from my life journey. So set goals. So whatever kind of adversity you're facing, so set goals, have a realistic plan, be flexible. Remember, the goal's the goal. The plan is not the goal. So if an unexpected door opens up and it moves you towards the goal, then be flexible. No reasons why you can't accomplish something. Only reasons why something might be harder. uh, Work real hard and never give up. And when you're about to give up, that might be the key moment where you're about to have a breakthrough. So even though you can't keep going anymore, do so anyway, just to see what happens on the other side. And when you come out the other side, then reach back and help people into the same position that you were in before, and do some work on the preventative side. And if you do that, you can make your suffering count for something. It could be healing, it could be cathartic, it could make a difference. And I know that those principles that goes far beyond wrongful conviction. That could apply to someone homeless, debilitating illness, uh, domestic abuse survivor, someone who's been sexually assaulted, someone who's experienced racism, someone who's been discriminated against in some other kind of way, on whatever level. All those things I mentioned and many more, bigger, smaller, that applies generically. But we need everybody to let's make well, maybe it's silly to say it, but let's try to make this place better. Let's try to make the world just a little bit better than what we found it.
That's not silly to say at all. I was going to do my closing remark, but I got a question from the audience. One more question. How do you feel about juvenile justice reform?
We still have a long way to go with respect to that. There's still too many states that charge juveniles as adults. Just from a scientific point of view, that the mind is not fully developed. So there's that aspect. There's some states still have juvenile lifers, life people, juvenile sentenced life without parole, and there's that's saying that somebody is beyond categorically beyond the pale of rehabilitation. I can't agree with that. I think that each person is capable of being rehabilitated. Now, whether they have become rehabilitated, that's a different question. But it should be an opportunity to review that. And in some ways, as bad as the adult system is, there's not as much due process and rights built into the juvenile justice system, even as the adult system. So I think we have a really long way to go. And the whole school to prison pipeline, and metal detectors in schools so that it's resembling more of a prison than a conducive learning environment. So there's a lot to be done with respect to juvenile justice reform.
So much to be done on the juvenile level, on the adult level. Jeff, I'm going to thank you for coming by. I'm about to close this thing out. It's your boy, Mike Ryder, Mr. Accountability, the man behind the microphone. This has been a great, informative, special edition of Mike Ryder Talks. I'm going to close this thing out like I do every time. You see the ticker at the bottom of your screen? Until we meet again, be blessed. I love y'all. I'm gone.